Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to repeat a statement from my opening, or a line from my opening statement. A third of the federal workforce will be eligible to retire in 2019. So the morale of the federal workforce, the vision that you exhibit in terms of your agencies is going to be critical to maintaining the historic knowledge that goes with a third of the workforce. I mean, we cannot overstate the challenge of what would happen tomorrow if every person eligible to retire in the federal service walked out the door. And so this exercise has to be done not as solely as an exercise of efficiency. It has to be done as an exercise in reaffirmation of the mission and the goals. Because when people feel the, or know the mission, know the goals, know how critical they are to the public, because as we all know, they may think they serve a president, we may think they serve a president, we may think our staff serves us, we may look at this and say it's all about who's at the top, who's the secretary, who's the president, who's the senator. At the end of the line, most really good quality federal employees that I know who the boss is, and that's the taxpayers of this country. And so we have to, I hope in your analysis, what you're thinking about is how you reaffirm how your mission will be established and how your mission will be advanced in light of these efficiencies. Because if you demoralize, if you devalue your workforce, they'll vote with their feet. Because they can go and take a part-time job doing something else and take their federal retirement. And I think that is a very precarious and dangerous situation that we're in if we really believe that these positions are absolutely essential to serving the public. So just with that, I put that as you're considering your plans and as you're putting these together, I just want to put the overlay. I want you to get a list of all the employees in your offices who could walk out the door tomorrow. And then think about how you would do the work and meet the mission of your agencies. So I am particularly concerned, Mr. Bryce, over the cuts to agriculture, of course, discouraged and where I have been a strong supporter of the Secretary, Secretary Perdue, and his vision, especially as it relates to trade. So I'm not criticizing the Undersecretary for Trade, but I am discouraged that we can't maintain our commitment at the Undersecretary level to rural development. You will take a look at all of the poverty ratings, all of the challenges. What we think when we think about poverty and we think about blight and we think about the challenges of America, we frequently go to that urban city, we go to the middle. We know, those of us who represent and think about rural America every day, know that the highest rates of poverty and the biggest challenges we have is in rural America. It's not in urban America. And so I hope that we can have a robust analysis of the role that USDA plays not only in assisting farmers on the farm program, but also making sure that that rural development role does not get left behind. And so, Mr. Bryce, I think when foundationally, and I'll do this very quickly so our colleague from California can get her question in. Secretary Perdue affirmed to all of the employees that he now manages and serves, if you believe that in servant leadership, that he serves, that there would not be cuts to the workforce at USDA when looking at a 21% cut to that agency. Tell me how you're going to do that and not cut employees.
Well, thank you for the question. So I think what we've talked about with the secretary and with the people around the secretary is to not make the discussions we're having on reform about cutting offices or people. It's more about how are we serving the customer? Are we serving them in the right way? Are we in the right locations? Are we meeting the needs out there? So most of our discussions have been about how can we make sure that the customers are served in a better way? And I'd include employees in that equation. You know, the Secretary's talked about, unfortunately, you can go into some county offices and FSA will be on one side of the building or maybe in a different building than our NRCS folks. And FSA, our Farm Service Agency, and our NRCS folks, they don't talk as well as they could. Their systems don't communicate as well as they should. So the burden we're placing on the farmers, it isn't just about how far they're driving, but it's also once they get in the office, we're making them go to multiple places to fill out multiple applications for similar programs. So the discussions we've had has been around how do we serve them better, not necessarily how we're going to reduce our workforce. So that's one of our focuses.
But it's hard for me to imagine those kinds of efficiencies would result in a 21% reduction in a budget. And, you know, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Congress is not going to authorize a 21%. I would like to see advocacy at USDA talking about the money that was saved in the last Farm Bill and that we already gave in sequestration. We've been one of the leaders in agriculture in meeting budget reductions, and so I fail to see how we're going to get to 21% and still do what I know needs to be done. And I will tell you this, you take people out of NRCS in my state, it just is going to delay and frustrate farmers who want to tile, who want to do the kind of work that they need to get permission from NRCS for. And so one thing that we learned during the Bakken challenges and with this huge increase when we really saw a lot of federal employees leaving and the inability to recruit new workforce, the business of North Dakota fails, or doesn't fail, but it definitely suffers, whether it's getting a BLM permit or whether it's getting information from USDA. And so we need to tell that story more often, and you need to tell that story more often. Thank you, Mr. Bryce. I'll turn it over. Mr. Chairman, you have 60,000 employees at U.S. Custom and Border Protection, correct? And about 60,000 at TSA. But yet, we're below, way below, just even a couple percent in terms of responses. And so, you know, the numbers look large, but they aren't large in comparison as a percentage of the overall workforce. And we all have an opportunity, because we fly a lot, to see the dissatisfaction from TSA in particular. You know, I frequently ask them, how's it going? And they just roll their eyes. And you know, I understand that it's a difficult job, and frequently you're dealing with a very crabby traveling public. But there doesn't seem to be a sense of cohesion when I go through those. And I make it a point, as does Senator Carper, who for years, you know, will shake the hand of every person. I'm usually too much in a hurry to do that, but we have a chance to meet a lot of your employees in Border Protection, and I think if you ask them, I don't think they feel they get listened to. And so one of the concerns that I have is this may seem like a big number, but I think some of them have just thrown up their hands and say it will never change anyway. And how do we combat that? You know, here we go again, another, you know, attempt to try and make us happy. Nothing ever changes, so we're not going to participate. I think I want to get back to what Ms. Herbst said, which I think is absolutely critical, and it's right. The closer a reform or a supervisor is to the employee, where they can see a direct response and wow, that worked. They actually listened, we changed, this got better. You know, that is gold in personnel management. You can have all of, I mean, I think we have a workforce sometimes that gets incredibly cynical about top-down kind of initiatives. We're in the second, you know, we're in the second, third phase of this. I can go through every kind of management, you know, kind of trend that there's been from total quality management. I mean, we can all talk about those, right? We've all been through them. But if people don't see systemic or lasting change, they get cynical and they don't engage. They put their head down and go home saying, I love my job, I love the people I work with, I believe in the mission of USDA, I believe in the mission of commerce, but, you know, every day I go to work and I do things that don't add value to that mission. We've got to have openness and less resistance at that mid-level manager level. And one of the things that we've been doing here in a bill that I introduced, which is on supervisory training, because a lot of times we take that guy who's the best lawyer, take someone who is, you know, the best field agent, biologist, and we make them a manager. And they know nothing about management of people. So how do you see, when you're looking at your systemic changes, how do you see supervisory training and all of that as a way to perpetuate and to continue the ongoing dialogue? And that's for anyone.
Well, we've had plenty of conversations with our human capital officer about how do we target it? That's the other issue there is I can't agree more. I usually use the IG example. The best auditor ends up being the manager of the office, but maybe not the best manager, but the best auditor. But, you know, we tend to just require things of our employees. Okay, we're going to require 80 hours of training. Go take it. Well, the issue is we need to find out who needs the 80 hours of training so that we target it to the actors that need it, whether they need support or they need to understand what their role is. They need, you know, reform in their own.
Can I just, do you have a mentoring program where you see really good managers who then can mentor new managers?
Yeah, we've set those up. We have those kind of upward mobility kind of programs where we have people who can informally mentor. We've got a website that we have employees register themselves, and then we could have mentors register themselves, and you can match. Sort of the dating game, I guess, approach. But so we do have that. We need to do a better job of that. Sometimes we're the victims of our own success, though, because at USDA we tend to get that new farm bill every 5 years and focus on delivering that farm bill. And by the time we're done delivering that farm bill, we're getting ready to deliver the next farm bill. And you don't have that flexibility to sort of look and say, well, how are we operating? We're constantly building the pontoon bridge over the water, not the permanent bridge. So, you know, what we really need to do is sometimes take a step back and make sure that we're building the right bridges to our employees.
One of the things that we want to make sure is loud and clear, because I think when you go through this kind of review process, immediately people go into defense mode. You know, that this is behind the curtain is an implicit criticism of the work that's being done. I think it's really important that the message of this is, how can we be better managers of the message? How can we encourage employee input and then respond to that input in a meaningful way? And so want to make sure that when we're analyzing, or when we're talking about a hearing like this, that this hearing is to try and offer opportunities for mainline federal employees to have their voice amplified in terms of efficiencies. It's not intended in any way to be a criticism of the people who work for the federal government. I think I want to ask you, in your dialogue, in your discussion coming back, is it possible to make that point over and over again in the work that you're doing?
I'll start and I'll say yes, and I'm going to sound like a cheerleader for OMB, which these guys who know me know I'm not usually, but they have been incredibly supportive in this effort, and I think the message, at least that we've received over and over again, is it's on us, because we know our missions, to propose things that are mission specific and support the mission. There has been no across-the-board edict or anything like that, and in addition, OMB and OPM have met with us multiple times to help answer questions on the guidance, to ask if they can do anything to help. So I think that spirit you're talking about is also flowing from OMB to the agencies.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
To add to that, understand that this is not a one-off. This isn't one thing. We're going to come back to you and say, where are we at with this process? And as long as Senator Langford and I are chairman and ranking member of this committee, we're going to do oversight on the plans that you present. And we're going to, this is not, check a box for us. to us, this is absolutely critical in meeting a 21st century federal workforce and federal agencies fulfilling their missions. And so that this is just our introductory, what are you doing right now? You will see us over and over and over again.
Yeah.
No, if we're winding down, I just want to make sure that the National Treasury Employee Union statement that we've provided is entered into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you.